everybody, welcome to my channel for a new battle report. This time another try with Ogre Khans, something slightly different than I played before, against the Warrior of the Dark God army. I played the following, so I wanted to try out new magical setup, trying new pyro. I thought I want something to be able to play against, for example, elves or glass cannon unit that can strike before me and strike hard if I don't play the first mammoth. In this case, I decided to bring out Master Pyro, also thinking, for example, in this game, when I don't need pyro too much, I can still pick a lot of buffs, hereditary and so on, and not rely too much on the range damage. So this was the theory, we'll see how that goes. Then I brought an apprentice shamanist that can also be a late game chaff, a great can. I wanted to try out a new build that I had in mind since quite a long time, but with the new Ligatong, it finally comes on the table, so to say. I picked Old Master to have access to plate armor, and then on it I put the Mammothite Cloak. And then I have all the weapons, and I put Talisman of Shielding to have a 5-up Aegis. Basically the idea is, if I take the Iron Fist, I'm virtually defensive 9. Parry, so to say, defensive 9, because I'm 7 and I do -2 to your offensive, which is not bad at all. Then I have a 2-up armor save, a 5-up ward save, and I reduce the opponent's strength to 5 maximal. So I thought it's quite interesting to have everybody hitting you 4s, wounding you on 4, so to say. If you have then modification, obviously this applies, like lightning reflexes for example, but still quite interesting. And I can also then use some buffs, for example -1 to wound or +1 resilience, to make this even harder to wound. I thought it's quite interesting. Downside being you cannot have Rotten Jaw and the Keen Eater. You cannot have Rampager Chain, sorry, to make the stomp attack, because you already have 2 Arcane items. So it has some downside, but it's definitely a defensive build that I would consider if I'm not playing Keen Eater. I think it's really a decent choice that can tank most of the challenge in the games. Then I have a Can BSB with Cult Leader and a Viper Curse. I have 10 Bruisers, 5 Saber-Tooth Tiger, 3 Tribesmen, 2 units of Tuskers, 1 time with Kinget Banner and 2nd time with Discipline Banner, 5 Yetis, 2 Yetis and 5 Bombardier. So no single model. I brought some units, some range damage. We'll see how that goes. I have basically 4 main threats, which is Yetis, 2 units of Tuskers, 1 unit of Bruisers. Then I have like place to put some of my character, being the Can BSB with Banner of Discipline plus the Pyro guy, and then the other 2 characters go into the Bruiser unit, and then the Tuskers are more on their own. My opponent brought the following list, so he has basically an Exalted Herald, an Adept Evocation with the book, 37 Barbarian, 3 times Warhounds, 1 unit of Horsemen to have the Mage within, 1 unit of Chosen Knight Gluttony, 2 units of 3 Feldrax, and 3 Giant. 1 being the Big Brother Favor Giant, 1 Monstrous Familiar to have the Breast Weapon, and then the Tribal War Spear Giant. We played randomly King of the Hill and Marching Column, and you have the following spell selection for both. So he has 2 range damage and 3 buffs, where I picked mainly buffs, a lot of them, maybe too much even. I thought from range I can use Flaming Sword on the Bombardier, and then 2d6 strength 4, and the rest I picked combat buff. Matchup analysis, so he has a lot of small threats, plenty of chaff, and a large block of Barbarian. It's not easy to get rid of, since it's going to be steadfast for a long time. Starting is always key in this type of matchup. I would be quite happy to start. Possible difficult combat against his Chosen Knight and Exalted Herald. Basically Chosen Knight, they strike fast, they strike hard. So they could be really a problem, and Exalted Herald, it's more defensive skill. That is always going to be an issue for Ogre Khans. Magic, yeah, Pyro could do some stuff to clean the chaff, but I'm not going to rely on it. As you saw, I didn't pick much of the blast that I had at my disposal. I decided instead to take many combat buff. I could have potentially considered Scorching Salvo, could have been potentially useful to put pressure on chaff. Can do stuff on Giants, Exalted Herald. It depends a lot on the position of my mage and what I'm going to do in the game. Estimation, I think it's a very open matchup. Deployment, so I wander all 4 sides and pick the hill as piece of terrain to defend. where my opponent picked the wall and decided to start. He deployed 1 giant, I deployed 3 Tuskers, another giant, I put 2 Yetis, then he put some Feldraks, I put my tribesmen, and after that he dropped for first turn, putting down dogs, barbarian, mage bunker, dogs, exalted herald, dogs, CK, and then the third giant and the 3 Feldrak with paired weapon on the left. My counter deployment, so I decided to put second unit of Tusker here. I have then a piece of chaff here in the middle. My unit of bruisers with 2 character, like I explained before. Then my unit of bombardier here, a bit protected by the impassable. And my Yetis on the far left, trying to basically zone him. And I really wanted to defend properly this hill and try to go for it from the side with the Tuskers, maybe going for secondary objective. He's turn 1. So he moved forward, but not much. Basically, rather than using chaff to really push forward, since I had like counters to charge the chaff, he decided instead to push forward with the barbarian, which makes sense, I guess, and put a lot of threats basically looking at the middle. In case I attempt any charges, I would instantly lose the unit that I brought to get rid of 300 points barbarian. In magic phase, he got the breast weapon off and did 1 wound to my Yetis. Here we saw already one of the how can I say, one of the vulnerabilities of my list, we could say, or weaknesses, is the fact that I wanted to get shooting attack, BSB, mage, pyro in a safe spot, and wanting to get rerollable leadership on all these units, and then some units are out of the bubble. Because the BSB needs to be in this unit and it's not in the middle of my line, I'm not getting any reroll here. And it could have already had some consequences, making them flee. It could have potentially, take a position here, try to make me flee through them to force another panic check and get rid of 2 units with 1 spell. So already quite a risk that I took. I wasn't too happy with, to be honest, but I think it's more weaknesses of the list rather than anything else. And then he got reroll to wound, lethal strike, and I dispel, I think, Grave Call, basically making it impossible for my Tusker to go in. Not sure I wanted to go in, to be honest, because if you charge here, what happens? Everything can counter charge me, so it's way too dangerous. I cannot chaff everything. I could chaff here these 2 units, but then the still CK and Exalted are all looking at me, and it's going to be an issue with all these available chaff to delay my Death Star from engaging. My turn 1. So I decided to chaff those guys to wait a bit more, reposition the rest of my unit, go on the hill with the Death Star, reposition the rest, didn't move so much, go on the hill as well with this unit to have line of sight on multiple things. In the magic phase, he dispelled Flaming Sword, then I tried to get 2d6 strength 4 on the Exalted Herald, but he dispelled that one, I failed it, and then with shooting attack I did 1 wound to his Exalted Herald, so not crazy start. Hasten 1, I forgot to mention that the Exalted Herald took Veil Walker and hard target 1. He took a charge on the flank, so that's the position that he wanted to see after the reform, but basically he charged the flank of the Yetis. I hold, he pushed hard with giants here. I made a small mistake, but still important. Rather than moving slightly back and opening a bit the angle, I move a bit forward, and then he was able to escape this line of sight. I'm not sure that I would have taken that charge because it has a lot of counter charge and so on, so I'm not sure it's the right play, but it would have made him think twice about it. Those guys can charge him as well, but basically it's I think it's right play to say let's engage with 1 piece. He still has multiple pieces to countercharge me after. CK push as well because he activated first piece of chaff to chaff my Death Star, and also is able to push with giant over here. I think again here smart play to say okay, you can keep your Yetis here facing my Feldrak, but then I'm moving away with the giant. I think it's the right play from him. In the magic phase, what happens? He tried to get reroll to wound, Grave Call, but fail, and then he did hereditary, reroll the saves on my Bruiser Star and kills 2 model, which is already huge. Close combat, Yetis, I did 3 wounds, he did 2 wounds to me, and I stick because he has no ranks, so it was an hard check, but I still managed to stick without the reroll and so on. It's actually not so much of a good news. Then he reformed to give me the flank here, but basically it could be an issue for me because it kind of forces me to charge. Because if I don't and suffer too many wounds and break after, it could be a free pivot for him which is going to be an issue. So we'll see what kind of solution I came up with. My turn 2, I took 2 charges. I decided I'm going to go with the Great Khan in the front and block him in this formation for now on. I used then the 5 dogs to chaff the CK, charge with the Tuskers into him. I didn't like too much charging into the Barbarians, because if he decides to break and not take the leadership, basically I would be in trouble being in close combats, and if I'm not breaking soon enough and I don't know when I go out, it could be an issue as well. So I didn't like too much going the Tusker into this unit. Could have done it, to be honest, since I'm able to chaff here. Could have said those guys I'm okay, but since I have no chaff available to chaff them, I don't know, it's kind of hard to say. And what I didn't like at all is the fact that if I charge in with my Tuskers and not break them, then he can counter-charge me at least with the Giant in the flank, which is also going to be a problem. So all together I decided to charge the Giant, which I think is not a bad decision. The problem being the Great Khan alone here, I don't know how long it's going to take me to get rid of those guys, which could be an issue. The rest just reposition. I wanted the Yetis in a spot where they can still zone the left, but at the same time have a look at the right if he decides to push to get a charge. Magic Phase, 2d6 strength 4, kill the chaff, which is nice. Then I got Flaming Sword on my Bombardier, did 1 wound with the attribute on the Giant, and with shooting I did another 2 wounds on the Giant, so he's still alive. Close combat, so here we stick, did some wound, but he is basically on 9 minimize rollable, or 8 minimize rollable because of fear, but still very reliable. And here on the right I made multiple mistakes. First of all, I think the right play was just to reform and tell him, you can charge the flank of the Yetis, you're going to kill him and bring just 2 wounds to the combat result. I should be fine here because he has no ranks, so I should be fine. It should still be close to a tie, so I should be okay. And then if he's here, I can counter-charge him with the Tuskers, which I think was the right play. What I decided to do instead is try to covering for them charging here. Basically, I make some stat, and I needed a 12 to overrun. So if I get the 12, obviously it's huge in the game. So obviously that's a factor as well. But if I roll only like a 4-5, it's enough to blocking him for the counter charge and make this charge kind of long. And even if I roll like middle and I stop here, it's not an automatic charge for him. It's going to be like middle charge to get in. And if he goes alone with them, it's huge, because then it's likely that he's going to break or at least get counter charge and so on. So it could get to something. So I decided to overrun. There was 2 problems with this decision. First of all, I'm going out of the BSB bubble and I'm away from a lot of stuff. And second problem is I put no magic buff on it. We will see. His turn 3, took the charge. So first one, terror check on the 9, no reroll. I pass it. It could have been already a disaster for me. But at the same time, risk for him to fail that charge. It was an 8 on 2 dice. Luckily for him, he made that one. That was really key. And those guys were automatic. So we'll see how that goes. It's a dicey combat. But if only I manage to stick, then you see the counter charge that I have in place to basically get rid of all of that and get a huge advantage on the game. So we will see. I would have liked to put some buff to get more safety, to get the BSB in range, which is 2 things that I didn't do and makes this play really, really risky. He charged my chaff, uses the Giant with 4 wounds remaining to chaff me. Those guys didn't move much, the rest just rearrange. As you can see, it's kind of packed. It's hard for the dogs to move out and chaff things. In the magic phase, so he passes. A couple of important march check. I think the most important was that one, the Giant on a 9 no reroll, is to go in front of them, because if he doesn't do that, he has no chaff, meaning the Bruiser Star is then free to charge his CK, which is going to be a problem because he has no way to chaff me other than the Giant. So that was definitely a key march check in the game. In the magic phase, he tried to put Hereditary on my Death Star. I dispel it and failed. Before that, he failed the Grave Call, so he did nothing this round. Close combat, I put some stats. Yeah. What happened in the middle combat? Not much. He killed the Yetis. I did some wounds. He reformed. He killed all dog except one that fled this direction. He restrained and reformed. And then, so this combat, First, the giant is going first. He has 6 attack on 3+, 4+. He did 1 wound, which is kind of expected. Then second initiative steps are my beast, because he's in great weapon. So on the right, I did 1 wound on giant, which is kind of expected, as you can see, 30% chance of happening. And on the left, with 2 beasts against his Feldrak, I did 3 wounds, which is also somehow in the middle range. Then the great weapon goes all of them together. On the right, on the giant, I do 2 wounds, which is also the most likely outcome. And then that's where something, 2 kind of unexpected roll to get combined together put me in trouble. He did 7 wounds with his strength 7 attacks from those guys, which is already quite huge. And for mine attack, I did only 1 wound back, which means all of that put together, I'm losing combat by like 2, I guess. And I have a non-rerollable check on -2 or -3 that I didn't pass. He decided to pursue only with the giant and reform the 2 remaining guys here. So the giant pursued me and cut the last remaining task as well. So I got heavily punished. Like I said often, if you do mistakes, you need to get punished for it to remember. And here I got heavily punished, first with the rolls and then still run down by the giant as well. My turn 3. So I had to charge those 2 guys that were reformed here because they had a line of sight to charge the flank of my Great Khan next turn. So I had no other decision than charging them. So I took the charge on them. They decided to flee. I think they were somewhere. Yeah, no, I think that's right. They were somewhere here. I think the way he positioned his giant, if I charged giant, I had no overrun onto those guys. So I needed to charge them to make them flee. Charge them, he fled. I tried to redirect on the 8, which is also very important roll, and I failed that one, which means I failed charge. It's kind of huge because if I get rid of the giant now, I'm still in a good spot. Okay, I lost the Tuskers, but in exchange for that, I make them flee and I get rid of the second giant, which puts me in a strong position here on the right. So yeah, here I think it's a key role of the game. I reposition those guys to charge maybe the flank. The rest just defend more or less. I rallied the dog on 5 rollable, which was lucky. And those guys just move behind the hill to not get charged by the CK. Want to get rid with magic of him and range damage basically. And Great Khan is still in combat at the moment. Not in trouble right now, but yeah, it's not a safe position for him to be. As you can see, there's still a lot of Barbarian left. Magic phase, I got a big fireball on the giant. 3d6 strength 4, so big pyroclastic flow. And then I roll a 111 for the hit, 111. I still managed with the attribute, the blaze together, to do 2 wounds to the giant. And then with shooting, I was able also to get a rod of battle on my guy here. He dispelled flaming sword, I guess. And with shooting attack, I managed to kill the giant. So at least that's done. Close combat, I did some other wounds. He passes his 9 rollable, all good. His turn 4, he passes the mark check here, move out of arc of the Tuskers, which I think is the right move. He finds a very good position with his Exalted Herald that is simultaneously not chargeable by my Tuskers because of the positioning, chaffs my tribesmen, and has a look at the Great Khan in the flank. Perfect. And is still in a good position to blast at the same time the remaining dog. So it's really, really nice position that he found. I rallied those guys on the 9, I guess. Those guys didn't move much. Repositioned his chaffing unit and didn't move much on the left. In magic phase, I binding scroll hereditary. Here I figure out it's key to save the dog. I could either chaff those guys and be aggressive here, or chaff the Exalted Herald that is going to be a problem. So definitely I need the dog. So I binding scroll hereditary. Then, to my surprise, decided to grave call my Bruiser Star. I let that go because he had got a high roll on 4 dice and I had only 5 dice. And he did 9 wounds to my Bruisers. That's crazy. That's 1 rank that's gone away, which is going to be a problem for the remaining 2 turns. Close combat, he passes his steadfast on a 9 minimize. My turn 4. So I need to find out some solution because I'm in trouble right now. So I pick the lone dog to chaff the Exalted Herald. Is not able to charge my Great Khan or to overrun into it. Those guys just turn around to look at the secondary objectives. Those guys just march all the way here to have the giant in the front but come closer to the secondary objective. Those guys move a bit sideways, reform, backwards and so on, and they remain behind the hill. I want to defend the hill, but it's not going to be easy. I need to start to do wounds from range damage onto the CK, which is also not going to be easy. In Magic Phase, I got Rod of Battle on my Great Khan, I got 2d6 Strength 4 on the Chosen Knight, did 3 wounds together with the Blaze, which is unexpected, but really nice to get. Shooting, I did another wound to the Chosen Knight, and then close combat, he was still steadfast. His turn 5, charge dog, passes another march check with Giant to come in front of my Tribesman to block. Again, a nice move. He uses the dog to block me to the flank and uses him to block me to the back. Basically, I have no way to escape or come anywhere close to the secondary objective, which I think was well done. Those guys that rallied move forward. The dogs move a bit forwards. The Chosen Knight as well. Is trying to do something to get to the secondary objective, basically. But I thought that was well done. In Magic Phase, he failed the Grave Call and I dispel Hereditary, which I was happy. No spell, so maybe he can break Steadfast one time. I killed some guys, but he was still Steadfast and passes on 9 rollable, which is expected. He killed my dog and reform, and the bruisers had no way to see him. My turn 5. So I took out the Shaman, the apprentice guy, to chaff the Chosen Knight. Those guys move sideways on the hill to see them and be in the front of the Exalted Herald. I moved the Bombardier here to shoot at the Herald. Move those guys sideways, thinking on his turn 6 he has no charge. He can push forward, it does nothing. But then my Yetis and my Bruisers are both together looking at the Chosen Knight, which could be enough. Here, my opponent made a mistake. He completely forgot that he's not going to be steadfast at the end of the round. That's something that can happen when you have a unit engaged for a long time. You think, oh, it's going to hold, and now I'm going to get out of combat. And the overrun is on a 7 with the Pursuit, which could put me back in the game. So I'm excited about that. Here I just move back with the Tribesman and put turnaround with the Tuskers, blocking his chaff from chaffing me. And at the same time, if he charges me with the Giant, I can charge him with the Tuskers. We will see. At the same time, looking towards the middle of the map where I could potentially help with the Tuskers. Magic Phase. 2d6 Strength 4 on Exalted Herald got dispelled. Then I got -1 to wounds from Pyro on my Great Khan. He passes an armor save on his Exalted Herald to not suffer any wound. I put Flaming Sword on the Bombardier, and shooting I did 1 wound, but he saved that one with the ward save with his Exalted Herald. I could have potentially do something else than Flaming Sword. That wasn't too exciting on someone that has our target and a 4-up ward save. Close combat. What happens? I kill like 5 or 6. He breaks, and I run him down and roll exactly 7 to go into the flank of this unit. If he passes the panic check here, I guess so. So now I'm kind of back in the game, because my Great Khan is in the flank of those guys, will get a free pivot in the middle of his line. It could be huge. He's turn 6, so he goes for it. He goes for the risky move, but I think make also sense in a training game to try some things out. So he charged with the Exalted Herald onto my 5 remaining Bruisers, reform the Chosen Knight to be on the secondary objective, and also he reformed them that way to give me as long as possible charge for the Yetis, which is going to be an 11 Swift Ride, which I think is a smart move. He charged my Tribesman that passes third check, and he positioned again his unit in a very smart way to just block me from going anywhere near the wall. So basically it's impossible to go on the wall because of the 1-inch rule. Again, very well done. I couldn't have angled any differently because of the dogs last round, so well done from him. In the Magic Phase, as you can see, they didn't panic. In the Magic Phase, he did an Hereditary on my Yetis, which I was surprised, to be honest. He did 5 wounds to my Yetis, so it's panic check 8 rollable that I passed. I wanted to force some panic, I understand that, but I think it's more key to buff the CK because of the upcoming combat against potentially my Great Khan. So I let that go, then I dispel, roll 2 wound, lethal strike. And close combat, I did 5 wounds with Great Khan together with my strength 7 great weapon attack. and the impact hits, so that's too much. They broke from combat. One guy fled all the way here. He passes the panic check on 8 on those guys. He failed the panic check on them. They fled because the general is far away. And I restrain. I passed my restrain on 9 or reroll. That was also a very important roll, because if I fail it, I would have potentially end up charging them, which is nice, but I really want to get rid of them because it's secondary objective. Giant did some wounds. I did like 1 or 2, 1 back. I fled. It didn't catch me, which is nice. My turn. Here, as you can see, finally, close combat here. Exalted Earl against my bruisers. He did 3 wounds to me, so he killed 1 guy, which is expected, as you can see. And me back, I did like 5 wounds that he had to save on a 4-up ward save. So I got very excited, because if he fluffs the roll for ward save, it could be huge. But it ended up being as expected. I did only 1 wound, so he passes 4 out of 5 ward save, which is no big scandal here. My turn 6. So I ended up charging with the Tuskers in the back of the Giant. There is nothing I can do for the secondary objective, and here I'm trying to get rid of them, and I got the charge on 11. The only problem was I did the worst, I think the worst possible placement of my unit into this combat. Why? Because first of all, my Great Khan should have been here in the middle to get a possible overrun onto the back of his Exalted Herald. That's mistake number 1. Mistake number 2, I completely forgot that I have impacted on the character, and if I do only 1 wound on them, it's only going to be 1 Yeti striking instead of 4, which is huge. So that's a huge mistake in the game. I was lucky to get the charge off. Okay, I agree with that, but making that mistake, it's huge. Those guys turn around, but I don't have much shot here. Here we see in combat, mage is out of the unit to try to blast stuff, and that's it. In the magic phase, I got -1 to wound on the bruisers to help me survive. He binding scroll the number 1 of shamanism. I got an hereditary on the Tuskers. And then close combat, here I did 2 wounds, I guess he did 2 as well. Here I killed Giant. And this combat here, basically it happened what should happen, which is the impacted kill did 1 wound. My Yetis and the Great Khan together did a couple of wounds. I won by quite a margin. He had the double 1, minimize, rollable, and he passed it. Snake Eyes, rollable, minimize. So yeah, I guess I'm punished by the mistake of the placement of the Yetis. I could have also failed that charge, but yeah, not too happy about that, because I should have placed better. We could debate whether or not I could have also potentially go for another charge to say, let's try only the Yetis. That's going to try to get rid of them, since they are in a flank mode, and then the Great Khan could have charged in the back. And that's a challenge where I start with a charge in the back. I could buff, and I could potentially get the point of the Exalted Herald. It was a charge on a 6. But then I'm making a cross on the mission, so I still think all considered together, and the charge of the Tusker here was a 10, so I think it's too far. I had to take the point of the Giant. But here I think the right choice was to do the charge I did, but in a different positioning, basically, and would have been easily an auto break. So yeah, disappointed, but he saved that, and all of that together makes it a 10-10. It's a 10-10. So I took way more point than him, but he wins secondary objective, which makes it a 10-10. Lot of things to say. I said already a lot, so I'm going to be quick. Always a bit under pressure when not starting against War of the Dark God with a lot of combat threats. I felt my deployment seems okay, since he didn't manage to be more aggressive in the beginning. Yet his holding the close combat didn't help me at all. I think it wasn't the right decision to send the Great Khan alone. I could have died multiple times if he managed to get any counter charge. I think he could have placed slightly better to arrange a counter charge and get rid of the Great Khan. In the end, I got freed at the right time and could charge stuff, so I was a bit lucky with how it turned out, but I think it was way too risky to send the Great Khan alone in 40 guys, Barbarian. I think it made no sense at all. Turn 2, Ogre Khan, I should have buffed the Tuskers. I think the overrun wasn't the right choice. I could have just reformed and tell him, what do you want to do? You want to charge my Yetis? Then I counter-charge with the Tuskers, and I was still in decent position. So I think the overrun wasn't the right choice. Turn 3, War's Dark God, still an important and a risky combat. I mean, he went in with the Giant plus the Felderak. As we saw from the stat, most likely I'm sticking this combat. And then I get a key counter-charge from the Tuskers, which means I win the right flank. So a risky play that I didn't saw he would take it, my opponent, but he took it and it paid off. His turn 5, yeah, that's I think his biggest mistake of the game. He decided to... He just forgot about the Barbarian breaking in the same round, making me able to get a pursue into his flank, which was very important for the rest of the game. Turn 6, Ogre Khan, bad positioning into this combat. Already said enough about that. And yeah, about the list, couple of learnings. Wasn't happy about the magical setup. Even if my magic did decently in this matchup and my shooting as well. I think I had a huge problem because of the positioning of my magic and BSB. I was too far from the action, thinking about the Tuskers that got no reroll, for example. So that was still a big weakness of the list and a problem, basically. So guys, that's it about this battle report. I don't know exactly when I'm going to post it, but if it's before the end of the year, basically I'm wishing you a happy new year. Enjoy it. Enjoy the holidays for those of you who have holidays. And then what's coming up on the channel, it's basically, I think, yeah, like a recap of the year. What were my results? Where did I improve? Where there are still room of improvement and so on. I like to analyze and reflect a bit with bringing you some numbers about the games that I did, number of games. I try also to count number of videos, tournament results and so on. So I'm going to post that, I think, also before the end of the year. Thanks a lot guys for watching my battle report. I hope you liked it and talk to you soon on the channel. Bye.